So I just fired up Stellar Blades demo. It just launched today ahead of the June 11th release on PC. And the system requirements for this game are very, very low. So I'm trying to test them out and see if that's legit. Hang on for a second. What are the system requirements here? A GTX 1060 does specify the 6GB version or Radeon RX 580. Now, I do have a GTX 1060 6GB in the system right now. I am on a newer overall platform, so we're not testing out the CPU requirements. We're just making sure this GPU can deliver. They're saying that at the low graphics preset, we should be able to hit 1080p 60, not 1080p 30, not 720p 30, like if I see the 1060 show up in a lot of graphics requirements these days, kind of tends to be. So I'm curious, is the game really going to be that easy to run, or maybe there's some hidden resolution scaling going on in this low preset? Well, let's go ahead and have a look. So popping into a menu right now with the system requirements. Okay, so we're on the low preset. Now, it seems like the low preset does have resolution scaling involved. So I'm curious if I turn that off, if we'll actually hold 60 FPS. Looks like it defaults to the quality setting. So that does indicate that maybe the system requirements are actually including some res scaling on that target. Interesting. Also curious that the VRAM thing right behind me right here, green screens are confusing, does indicate this is potentially going to go slightly over 6GB of VRAM, which could potentially be an issue. Although it says the game itself should be under 6, but you know, stuff is reserved for the operating system and other features. Anyway, looks like we'll start out with this. So this is the low preset, which does include resolution scaling at the quality setting. You can definitely tell we have some FSR going on this hair. Looks a little bit pixelated, but you know what? Let's go ahead and try it out. By the way, I have played a little bit of this demo on my lunch break before I got home to my PC using my Steam Deck, and my Steam Deck was on its Steam Deck default preset, which it did have, was mostly in the 40 to 60 FPS range. However, I do need to say that it was using a lot of FSR on the low preset. So it looked extremely pixelated. This is looking a bit better and performing a bit better. I should actually kick on some average FPS counter here, maybe as soon as we're out of this cutscene bit. So let's go ahead and kick on the averages. So we are currently at over 70 FPS. Whoa, I like inverted cameras when I use a controller, guys. We're gonna have to find that button. Sorry to waste your time. Or else my gameplay is gonna look exceptionally poor. Because yes, I do use inverted y-axis when playing on a controller, because that's the right thing to do, guys. Honestly, I think when I was a kid, there was some game I bought that just played like that by default. Ouch, that looks painful. Anyway, that was just like inverted controls by default, and at first it threw me off. And as a kid, I was either too dumb to find the option to switch it back, or maybe the option didn't exist. You know, old video games were not always quite as friendly on the control systems as newer ones. And I played enough of that game that I was just a inverted controller user for the rest of time. Anyway, man, it is certainly looking like we are holding, currently it's a 75 FPS average. Now, I will say there have been some frame time spikes. You do see blips on the frame time graph, and the 1% lows are down in the mid-30s right now. This is an Unreal Engine 4 game. Unreal Engine can have shader compilation issues. It can have some general frame pacing issues. Now, nothing's felt awful or anything. There haven't been like super huge frame time spikes. You can see that when we get those blips on the frame time graph, the frame times themselves are still fairly small, meaning that it's not a huge variation in frame time, so which tends to be a lot more noticeable. But yeah, it is really looking like we're mid 70s here. I'm actually curious now, does that mean if I turn off the resolution scaling that we actually are going to be good to go at a native 1080p 60 at the otherwise low preset? Very interesting. All right, let's see. I do think the hair looks noticeably better without the upscale, although still a little bit of breakup in motion. But yeah, I do. So I can already tell that we're no longer upscaling. Here, let me go ahead and reset the frame rate counter. So resetting the frame rate counter. Looks like a little bit of a movie section there. I mean, just panning the camera, really. But all right, it's going to finally let me sprint. That's good. I got an occasional little blip on the frame time graph. The 1% lows don't look amazing, so... did I just die? I wasn't paying attention, guys. I was staring at the frame time graph. Apparently I got hit by explodey rocky things. How embarrassing. All right, let's keep rolling. So, also, I haven't made it, like, super far in the demo even, let alone the game. So, I did make it through this first area and into a city area, and this first area, with all the explosions and enemies and things, did seem more demanding than that second area, at least when I was playing on my Steam Deck, so this seemed like the better place to be testing things out. I should probably stop getting hit by the explodey rock things and pay a little more attention to what I am doing. Anyway, yeah, it looks like we are over 60 FPS here, which is pretty interesting. I'm almost wondering, did we fail to disable the resolution scaling? Did it switch to TAA resolution scaling? I don't think it did. Okay, here, okay, definitely dropping below 60 there for bits of this cutscene. But definitely holding over it on average. All right, do we get to fight the big monster guy? Can I skip cutscenes at this point? Is there no skip cutscene button? Okay, that's one thing that does annoy me in games, especially when I've already played through a section. No skip. Okay, we still have a week or two until, what, week and a half until the actual release. If we could get a skip cutscene button, that would be greatly appreciated. Maybe I'm missing it, but I'm trying escape. I'm trying all the various controller buttons. Does not seem to be an option. You can certainly tell on the low preset that a lot of these textures are rather low res. We saw the blood on the face of the character there. So, I mean, by allowing settings to turn super low, you allow older hardware to play the game. So that is cool. Because one thing about a lot of newer games is that it seems like the low presets don't go as low as games used to go on their low presets. Which means that oftentimes that then kind of locks out people on older hardware. So maybe some newer games could offer a potato mode or something where it just disables all sorts of stuff to try to let people play the game at least if they are on the older hardware. Because this one, again, like look at the textures in front of us right now. It's a little blocky looking, right? We can tell we're on the low preset. But overall, you know, the frame rates, like I said, seems like we're over 60 FPS still. Let's see how the combat with the boss monster goes. Yeah, it doesn't seem any more demanding. In fact, it was the more open areas seemed actually more demanding than what we're seeing here. Let's see, what's my block button? It's L1 in this game, right? Boom. Ah, missed the block. All right, so I do want to actually check that we are so resolution scaling is off. Render scale is 100%. So yeah, it absolutely looks like we are well over 60 FPS here. Am I not allowed to turn on? Okay, so actually, you know what? Let's go with, let's actually go back to resolution scaling. And let's go back to resolution scaling quality. And now it's actually going to let us turn on frame generation. So I'm just curious what that gets us. Now keep in mind that frame generation increases frames, but decreases responsiveness, right? You get more input latency, but does increase the overall frame rate. Not sure it's worth the trade-off in an action-style game like this, but I thought I'd at least try it out since we're here. Should also pay a little bit of attention to trying to block and actually do combat. Yeah, the frame time graph doesn't look amazing, so there is that. But all right, let's actually go ahead and check out what if we went ahead and played at like medium settings, but kept the resolution scaling on. But let's go ahead and have the frame generation turned back off for a better representation of actual performance. So frame gen's off, but we have gone ahead and switched to medium settings. Also, I think, well, you know what, let's just keep the combat going here. And I should use a health potion, shouldn't I? All right, I'm gonna reset the frame rate counter. Now, I'm not 100% sure everything actually applied settings. It's best practice to restart, but usually at least most of these settings do apply. All right. Okay. Well, I mean, guys, I think it actually looks like the GTX 1060 is pretty good to go in this game. I'm going to go ahead and try out upping to a 3060. All right, I've put in the RTX 3060 and I have cranked up the graphics settings. Let's go ahead and take a look. We are on still 1080p resolution, and I think we're gonna be able to try cranking up to higher resolutions. I'm on the very high preset. Now this does include DLSS 4, and I've set it to the quality setting. Now, in the past with earlier versions of DLSS, I tried to back off of upscaling at 1080p output if possible. But with DLSS 4, generally quality level upscaling still looks quite good even with a 1080p output. So I'm actually gonna start with this. So max settings other than quality level DLSS 4. And again, we could try out native resolution as well, but let's start with this. And I'll go ahead and hit the frame rate averages. Currently well over 100 FPS at absolutely maximum settings. And we can tell that now that we're not on the low settings like we were at the 1060, certainly textures are looking a lot nicer. There's more, particles, the lighting, everything definitely looks nicer. And again, getting the DLSS 4 upscaler rather than the FSR 3 is, I think, things like the hair in motion staying a lot more cohesive, all of that. So things are looking nicer, but it was really nice that the 1060 did perform well. And it's looking like the 3060 is performing extremely well as well. In fact, we're getting such good performance that I think once I have control again, I might even try going up to native resolution, maybe even try DLAA for a nice high quality upscaler. Not upscaler, sorry, I mean anti-aliasing. So let's actually see if we have that option here. So if we go to DLAA, this is now native 1080p, but we're using the DLAA anti-aliasing rather than a TAA, which usually looks better. I haven't compared it head-to-head in this game, but it usually looks better. Resetting the frame rate averages, you can see that we're now, looks like a little over 70 FPS. It's also, I'm curious how the 1% lows here are gonna look. I'm curious, so far the frame time graph does seem flatter than what we were seeing with the 1060. Now remember the 1060 did give us a little bit of warning that we might be slightly over the VRAM limit. I'm not saying that is for sure the problem, but it's just a potential idea I'm noticing. Anyway, speaking of VRAM though, it's looking like currently we're allocating 7 gigabytes and showing 6 gigabytes of usage. So despite this being a 3060, which has 12 gigabytes of VRAM available, it's looking like it doesn't need more than 8, at least so far in this scene. But these are the maximum settings. All right, let's go ahead and actually take a look at what if we tried a higher resolution. So let's actually go up to 1440p now. And DLAA here might not be the best choice. Let's go ahead and see how it runs. So it's looking like with DLAA, we are going to be under 60 FPS, but honestly in the mid-50s, at least right now. This is obviously not an extensive test. That's a few seconds, but it is gameplay. There's combat, a lot of stuff going on screen. Let's go ahead and actually switch to, I think, what would be a more optimal choice if our frame rates aren't super high already, which is actually going to DLSS quality. So DLSS quality, or I might even try out balance, but I think quality will probably get us to pretty good situation here. We are, looks like in the mid 70s now. I should probably actually be paying attention somewhat to combat. Whoops. Anyway, did I just go out of the zone there? Is that what happened? Too separated? Anyway, yeah, it looks like we're in the mid 70s at maximum settings DLSS quality. And again, this game having DLSS 4 support. And again, to be clear, using DLSS here for upscaling, not for frame generation. This is a 30 series card. It doesn't support DLSS frame generation anyway. So yeah, mid 70s here. Game's looking pretty nice. Yeah, so this doesn't have some of the craziest rendering technology that you could get in, you know, some other games that are certainly a lot more demanding, but I think it looks nice and is performing well. It did have a shader compilation burn at the start, and so far, what was the occasional small frame time blip? None of them seem like the big frame time stutters that I generally get with shader compilation issues. So, man, I mean, maybe other parts of the game later on get a lot more demanding than this, but I mean, there's combat here. View distances are going out pretty far. Honestly, this seems pretty great so far, performance-wise. And again, this is just a 3060. What if I actually went down to DLSS balanced? Because honestly, again, with DLSS 4 on a 1440p output, I feel pretty good about DLSS balanced usually. And now we're getting up to almost 100 FPS. Look, lots of explosions on screen. We're dipping into the 80s. 1% lows at 68. So yeah, seeming pretty smooth even through the big explosions. Great. I'm honestly curious now, is 4K out of the question? Not that a lot of people use their 3060s as a 4K 4K GPU, but honestly, a lot of people do you know, have the ability to use their PC on a TV, which might be a 4K TV. And I'm wondering, again, we'll start out, leave it at DLSS balanced, but I'm wondering, at 4K, it often go to performance mode. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, it looks like we're at 50-something FPS here, which is reasonable on a variable refresh rate display, but I'm going to try out performance mode upscaling. So this is, again, the very high settings, which are the maximum preset available, at DLSS performance mode with a 4K output, and it is looking like we are just a little under 60 FPS, which means if we did turn down the graphics preset, I think a 4K 60 upscaled from, you know, with DLSS performance mode, but again, with the DLSS 4 upscaler, it's holding together pretty well. Things that are generally hard for upscalers, I'm looking at here, like the fine lines on that creature has some fine lines there. They're holding together pretty well. The hair in motion is really hard for upscalers, and it's still not looking too bad with the performance mode upscale. Sometimes these kinds of fogs and depth of field effects don't play super well. I'm noticing the hair with the depth of field can have a few issues, which sometimes can be a bit of a DLSS weak point. So yeah, a little bit of breakup on some hair strands there. It's not absolutely perfect, but honestly, again, this is an RTX 3060 at maximum settings, other than the, like I said, the upscaling being at the performance mode. So, pretty good stuff. Let's go ahead and see maybe how the combat actually goes once we get into it. Looks like we're dipping into the 40s here. It's a cutscene, so not too worried about that or anything. I don't think the maximum settings at 4K, by the way, are going to be, even with the DLSS performance, are probably not the optimal choice for a card at the 3060 level. I think that it would probably make more sense to be at a lower preset, but I don't currently have the option to change settings. Can't skip the cutscenes. It's a little bit frustrating, but it is neat to see how well this is performing at 4K. Output, again, DLSS being used, but that is, like I said, image quality still looking great, so why not? The game had pretty good 4K mode on consoles, and one of the main issues was just the reconstruction technique maybe not being ideal, but the DLSS on PC does solve that. All right. Yeah, combat going in kind of the mid-50s. I imagine there are going to be more demanding areas of the game where this probably dips into the 40s. But hey, there's a lot of effects going on, big enemies, combat, all sorts of stuff, and we are holding in the mid 50s. So I'm going to go ahead and call this a really well performing game on PC based on this first section of the demo, which admittedly is not a full test of the entire game. But certainly a promising sign. And are you guys interested in me testing out other graphics cards here? Again, the demo is currently available for free, so you can go ahead and test it out for yourself as well. I hope all of you have an excellent day.